the third year and counting, Richard Skipper has been celebrating the artists you love.
And what are some of the things that you've really
run out of time, and we've got to talk about your latest. I want to go back a little bit, first of all, and celebrate a true legend.
Richard Skipper is all about celebrating life, art, and his guest body of work.
And did you pursue performing opportunities while you were in high school?
Please join us while he showcases these diverse and talented individuals. Here's Richard Skipper.
Happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. Who or what are you celebrating tonight? I believe that every day there's something to celebrate. There are people to celebrate. There are places to celebrate. There are things to celebrate. I celebrate art, artist, life. And I believe of looking in every corner. And there are so many interesting things that can be celebrated today if we only take the time to do so. For example, did you know that this entire month is National Bathtub Safety Month? So if you are taking a bath while you're watching the show tonight, please, please, please be careful. This is also National Day of Acceptance, which is a wonderful day for us to have our special guest tonight. And we are all about inclusion, acceptance, and everything. And I want to talk, first of all, if you can see this little pin here, this was made by my friend, Kathleen Hochberg. And she told me about this incredible show that she went to see with Austin Rivers. And she told me all about Knit the Rainbow. And tonight we're actually going to give away a Knit the Rainbow pin, which Austin is going to be wearing. And you'll see that in a few moments. But before I bring Austin on, who is always worth celebrating, here's a little clip just to give you an example of what he is all about. Here's Austin Rivers.
Welcome back to our special. A recent Gallup poll shows that 5.6% of Americans identify as LGBT. But research has shown that LGBT youth comprise more than 20% of the homeless youth population. Musical theater performer Austin Rivers found that imbalance troubling and decided to create a nonprofit. Knit the Rainbow was founded to provide brand new garments to homeless LGBTQ youth. Here's the story of how it launched in the middle of the COVID pandemic.
Getting started is the hardest part about knitting. Once you're in it, it's pretty easy to just keep going.
In an attempt to spend less time on his phone, Austin Rivers taught himself how to knit. His hobby eventually grew into a nonprofit, Knit the Rainbow, collecting handmade and new garments for LGBTQ+ homeless youth.
I was finishing up my master's degree and I was trying to decide what I was going to do with this degree in public administration. I came across some pretty staggering statistics about LGBTQ+ youth.
According to a study by the University of Chicago, LGBT youth have a 120% higher risk of reporting homelessness, often stemming from a lack of acceptance at home.
It can be dangerous to be an out LGBT person and, living on the street. I couldn't at the time, and I can't at the time, create a shelter. So what I could do was find some way to keep them warm.
To date, nearly 4,000 garments have been donated, and every item is tagged with love, one of their donors providing them with hand-crocheted heart tags.
I also met my boyfriend. It's a little pandemic love story. We started off as roommates, and now here we are, almost a year and a half later.
Marquez Linder works as Knit the Rainbow's graphic designer and social media manager.
I'm also a resident folder and organizer and just all-around volunteer, being a supportive boyfriend.
Knit the Rainbow is also hoping to provide community outreach in the form of knitting classes.
We want to interact with the youth and teach them these lifelong skills that they can then make for themselves and also turn into careers and hobbies.
The day ends with a donation drop-off at the Ali Forney Center, the nation's largest organization dedicated to housing and caring for homeless LGBT young people.
This is amazing. This is so wonderful.
So these are all handmade. Our goal is to provide these homeless LGBTQ+ youth with love, giving them love, compassion, and comfort, and letting them know that there's someone out there in the world who's thinking about them. So Knit the Rainbow is love.
To donate, head to knittherainbow.org.
That is so incredible. And Austin, so are you. And I'm so thrilled that you were here tonight. Today is also the first day of Aquarius, and I'm an Aquarian, and our symbol is the rainbow. So it is absolutely appropriate that you're here tonight.
Well, I'm wearing some rainbow for you, if you couldn't tell.
I wish that I had a rainbow coat like this.
It's actually the Target Pride collection, so it's great.
But and you wear it so well.
Oh, thank you.
Ask you, in addition to everything else that we're going to be talking about tonight, you have a new boyfriend. This has been so many incredible things happening. But what are you celebrating today?
Today, that's a great question. What am I celebrating today? What am I celebrating today? Today, I am celebrating coming into the weekend after a successful week at work at my day job. That's what I'm celebrating today.
Now, God bless you. You had a long day today.
I did, yes.
We were originally scheduled to do this at 5 o'clock, and we rescheduled tonight for 7, which I am happy about doing. And
thank you.
Welcome here. Over the holidays, someone sent me this incredible game called Be Best.
Okay.
And that's where we're going to start tonight.
Great.
I pulled a random question. I have not even looked at it. Here it is. And this is how we're going to start tonight. And the question is, what are the top 3 things on your bucket list? What a great way to start.
That's a great question. Top 3 things on my bucket list. Well, first one, COVID aside, whenever we can get to a point where we're past that, is traveling more. I've traveled quite a bit in my performance career, but I would love to travel some more outside of performing, because when you're performing, you don't get too much opportunity to really see the city that you're in all the time. So I want to travel some more on my own and with my new boyfriend and see some more of the world. So that's definitely a bucket list item. Number 2, bucket list. This one will include the Rainbow. I would love for the Rainbow to become a national organization serving youth across the country and not just in New York City. So that's second bucket list item. Bucket list item number 3. That's a great question. What's the third one? Number 3 is I would love one day to stop paying rent and start paying a mortgage in New York City, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. I know exactly what you mean.
Right.
Well, I asked before we started for you to send a photograph of you as a 5-year-old. I think one of you is 7.
Yes, that was the closest I could find was 7.
That's fine. And here you are with your brother.
Yes, I'm the older one.
I love that photograph.
Thanks. Me too.
And are you and your brother close?
Oh, yeah, we are.
That picture, I mean, the closeness in that picture is just so beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
But I asked for this photograph because to me, 5-year-old or 7, to me is the purest time in a person's life. It's before peer pressure gets added on.
Right.
You're starting school. Teachers start telling you who you should be and who you should not be. So I'd like to know a little bit about the 5-year-old Austin Rivers, where you grew up, your family life. Were there other siblings besides your brother? Fill us in.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So going back in time, 5-year-old Austin, that's 22 and a half years ago. So let's see. I was born and raised in Kissimmee, Florida. As a lot of people say Kissimmee, who are not from there, but it is Kissimmee. The emphasis on the Emmy at the end. I was born and raised there. I am half black and half white, so I have a mixed family household. I grew up really loving music and loving theater. I was in the school chorus choir ever since I can remember, and my mom says that I was singing before I could talk. So that is kind of a cute thing, because here I am still singing today. So that's where I'm from. I do have lots of other siblings, actually. So my brother that you saw there is Derek. He is my oldest younger sibling, but I am actually the oldest of 8 total.
Wow.
Of course, they all weren't around when I was 5 or 7 in that photo. My youngest sister now is 9, so she was born when I was 18. So my family's been growing and growing ever since, from that point that you saw that photo all the way until I turned 18 and moved to college. I was born and raised. So I stayed in Florida doing music and doing musicals in high school and middle school, and sometimes working at the community theater that I was local to. And then moved to New York for college, and I've been here ever since.
Well, where did it begin? Did you grow up in a household that had a lot of music? Did you listen to cast recordings? Where did that love of music and theater begin for you?
Yes, definitely. It definitely stemmed from my family. My family is a very musical family. My parents actually were show choir partners in high school, and then they had me shortly thereafter. And so I was in the womb listening to them both singing and dancing together and having a great time and enjoying music. And then additionally, my mom's sister, my aunt, she majored in theater in college. And so I got a lot of my love specifically for theater and musical theater from my aunt. She showed me my first cast album, which was Little Shop of Horrors,
Oh,
which I still
wow.
love today, one of my absolute favorite soundtracks and musicals. And West Side Story was another one of the early ones that I had met, that I had interacted with, along with Oklahoma. And those were the first couple shows. My aunt introduced me to them. And then from there, my love just grew and grew. And I got CDs when there were CDs. And then it started into, MP3s and downloads of, and then I just got all of the musical theater. My bedroom in high school had posters of all the shows that I seen on the wall. So every time I had gone to see a national tour at the local house, I would buy a poster, or my mom or my grandma would buy me a poster, and then I put it up on my wall. So by the time I went to college, I had probably 15 or 20 national tour posters that I had brought with me to my dorm room in college.
Good for you. Now, did you have a great arts and education program in school?
We did, yeah. So I actually, in my local area in Kissimmee, there is a performing arts high school, but I actually chose to go to the public school that was within my district because that's where my parents met. So my parents met in high school and had their choir director there, and he was still teaching there 18 years later when I decided to when I was going into high school. So I
Mhm.
actually had the same choir director that my parents had and that
That's
most of my
amazing.
family had. He was still there when I was in high school, and he had a great program. We always were top show choir and almost in the state of Florida, if I beg to differ. And we had a madrigal choir and a men's pop and a women's pop and just like every type of chorus you could ever imagine. We had that type of choral group. So I really think, in my humble opinion, that the public school choir was at least a little step above the performing arts school at the time when I was there. So that is why I ended up going to that public school. And yeah, so it was a public school program. So funding. Luckily, it had been an arts program at my school for a while, so it was funded, not as well as the football program, but it was funded pretty well because the teacher was Mr. Carswell is his name, and my family is still good friends with him and close family friends with him. Um, and yeah, so he was really a big inspiration in to me choosing to go into musical theater in college. My original dream was to do music education. I wanted to follow kind of right in his footsteps and go and teach
Mm.
music education. And then my junior year, we did West Side Story at school, and that was where I was like, nope, I want to actually go and do into the performance side of it and do musical theater as opposed to teaching music and/or theater to students.
What was the very first thing that you ever auditioned for?
Hmm. So I believe it's probably the first show that I was ever in, which was in fourth grade, and it was Annie, but it
Ah,
was the movie version staged. So it wasn't actually Annie the musical as it is on stage. My teachers, I guess, wanted to do the movie version, but on stage. So it was, I don't know why they decided to do that. Maybe they didn't have the rights for the
mhm,
actual musical version, but
right.
so that's what we did on stage, and I believe that was my first audition. But I actually don't remember that as my first audition because I was I think in third or fourth grade, so I don't have any memory of the actual audition room. Um, but I can remember auditioning for a solo in my sixth grade chorus. We were doing a Lion King medley at our spring concert, and we had to audition for the solo within the Lion King medley. And of course, I Just Can't Wait to Be King was one of the songs that was in that medley, and I can distinctly remember auditioning to sing the solo, which I got, and then I got to sing I
For
Just Can't
you.
Wait to Be King, and I think that was my first solo on like a big stage at our spring concert.
So, are you telling me earlier that you did not really have a desire to pursue this as a career until you were in college?
Yeah, I really didn't even know that you could pursue musical theater as a career until I was like junior in high school because you're supposed to do your auditions,
Mhm,
what is it, early senior year that you audition
right.
for musical theater programs. So it was only a couple months before that I had even known that you could audition for a musical theater program. And then I did a bunch of research and was like, "Oh, I guess these are the good schools to audition for." I auditioned for 6 schools and then I ended up getting into 3 of them for musical theater and I chose NYU.
Wow. And what was the decision? I mean, what was the, well, your parents obviously had a background in it,
Yes.
but were they supportive? Were they all open arms for you to come to New York?
Yes, definitely. When I was in high school, I got my associate's degree, which is your first 2 years of college for anyone who doesn't know, in high school. So I finished when I graduated with with my high school degree. I also had my associate's in arts degree when I graduated high school. So I was prepared. I was studying to either go into education and graduate 2 years early from college, or I had the option that I could have. I also kind of wanted to be a doctor or a vet somewhere in there. There was something. There was a reason I was getting the 2 years of college out of the way so I could save time later on if I were to go to medical school or whatever. But I just caught the theater bug and fell in love with it. And my family was so supportive and so very excited when I got into NYU and into the two other schools that I got into. And they were I was always very individualistic, so they let me make the decision, of course, of which school I wanted to go to, and they were supportive of every step of the way. They drove me on a college tour before I got to do my audition, so I visited the 6 schools that I auditioned for before I actually auditioned, and they flew me around to go visit each of the schools. So yeah, they were super supportive, and I definitely wouldn't be here today if I didn't have such amazing support back home.
Well, thank you, Mom and Dad. Are they watching? I hope.
I hope my mom is, yes.
Okay. So when you first came to New York, was it an easy transition for you coming from Florida?
That's a good question. I don't remember it being too difficult. I luckily had the safety net of college. So like you're in college, I was busy. I easily made friends because I was in a conservatory like program where you have the same people in your classes
Mhm.
9 to 5 every day. So it was easy for me to make friends. I was living in a dorm, so I didn't have too much of a culture shock. But then you go outside of, of your dorm and you're in this huge city with these big skyscrapers and millions of people, and it was crazy. I do because I come from a Kissimmee slash St. Cloud, which is a smaller town outside of
I know where it
Kissimmee.
is. I know
Right.
exactly where it
And
is.
people have cows there. Like people literally have
I know.
ranches. And so like you could easily walk down the road and see someone riding a horse in St. Cloud. And you definitely don't see that unless it's a police officer riding a horse here in New York City. So there definitely was some culture shock and some like awe. It was definitely I took lots of time to like slowly visit each of the big, New York City tourist traps and go and hang out at Ellis Island and do all the fun stuff, ride the Staten Island ferry, and I definitely did all the touristy stuff within my freshman year of college so that I could really get to know the city a little bit better on
Sounds
the touristy
familiar. When
side.
I'm from a small town in South Carolina,
Okay,
and it was the same experience when I first came to New York. Yeah,
right,
having my first pastrami sandwich, going on the Staten Island ferry, doing all those things. Well, I made friends with someone at my first audition, an
right,
older lady
yep,
who basically she was like Auntie Mame to me, and
yes,
she introduced me to New York, and it was just.
wow,
And this was '79, before you were born.
okay,
Um,
just a
and it
few
was a
years,
very different city,
right? I can imagine.
Yes, very, very different. So, what are your recollections of that first day for you in New York when you are away from home?
Hmm.
I'm assuming for the first time in your life.
Yeah,
So you're on your own. You're going in New York to you, of course, going to college.
right,
You're here to be an entertainer, to be an
right.
actor, to be a performer. What was your first day like in New York?
Mm. So I had the privilege of my mom and my grandma coming to drop me off. So they came with me to New York City. So the first couple of days I was with them and did a couple of touristy things. Like we did Central Park and we did the Empire State Building and we, walked around a few places. But the day that they left is really the day that I had my first day alone in New York City. So we were there for a couple of days. They helped me move into my dorm room. And then I remember being outside of my dorm room, outside of my dorm on the sidewalk outside. It was on 3rd Avenue. And I'm waving goodbye. My mom and grandma are getting into the taxi cab, and off they go. And then I turn around. I'm like, oh, I'm like by myself, and I hadn't made any friends yet because the welcome week hadn't started. So I was like, I'm really like by myself in New York City, this humongous city with all these people, and like little old me just standing on this little corner in New York City out of these millions of people. And I was like, here we go. Here's the start of the journey. And I walked back up into my dorm room, and so I had roommates, but I didn't know any of them, and we weren't friends. We weren't in the same program. One of them was probably, I think, a chemistry major. One of them was a history major. They were all in different programs, so I didn't get too close to them, and so I was just for the first couple of days, like just doing my own thing in New York and like making my family meals for the first time, but by myself, cooking for myself and trying to figure that out, going to the store and walking to the store instead of driving, and just like little things like that you don't do in small towns. Walking around to get to where you need to go. Usually you would take 10 steps out of your house and get in your car and drive somewhere, but instead you have to take a couple more than 10 steps to get wherever you're going and get on a subway and then come on back. So just the awe and the amazement of like being on my own and like, wow, I have full autonomy over my life now. And I'm here to do my dream and like work in the city. I'm probably going to live here for the rest of my life. And so far it's worked out. I'm still here 10 years later.
Good for you, knocking on wood.
Yes, thank
when,
you.
Where and how were you able to start making friends outside of your circle at college?
I really didn't even try to do that until I got out of college. So when I was in my 4 years, I really was just in the conservatory. My friends were all my fellow musical theater majors. I was a double major actually in my undergrad, so I double majored in musical theater and politics. So I did have a couple of friends outside of my musical theater program because there were some friends that I had made in my politics program. But even then, it was still all NYU students that I was making friends with. So it really wasn't until I had gotten my first professional contract outside of college where I started to make friends that were not NYU people.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you go home, when school was out, or did you stay here in New York?
I did go home. So between my freshman and sophomore year, I ended up going home and I performed in a show at my local community theater.
Mm-hmm.
My freshman year of college at NYU, you're not allowed to perform. So your freshman year, you just have to sit and incubate and learn and take the classes and then watch your upperclassmen perform and kind of learn from them. So I was dying to perform because I was like, it's been a whole school year. I haven't been in a musical. So then I went home between freshman and sophomore year and I auditioned for the local community theater was doing The Wizard of Oz. So I auditioned for that. And I was in the ensemble, and I was one of the
Speaking of
June bugs.
rainbows,
Right? Exactly. Right. It's a theme. If you can, I didn't even think of that. That's a funny thing to pick up. So yeah, I went home then. I would go home on NYU had like a fall break, which was only it was like a 5-day weekend. So I went home one of those fall breaks. I would go home for Christmas, and then I went home again for the summer after my sophomore year. I actually did a study abroad program in Germany, and it was called Music Theater Bavaria. And it's run through a program in Florida at Rollins College, and they are the professors who run it are also at Rollins College in Florida. And because I'm from Florida, I had heard of the program, and I knew someone who had done the program the year before, and she was like, "Austin, you have to audition for this program. One, because it's a great program, and two, because you get to live in Germany for a month and a half." Which I was like, "That sounds amazing." As a sophomore in college, having not done much international travel, if at all. So that summer, I studied abroad for a month in Germany. Had a great time, learned some German. Don't remember any of it now because it's been a couple years and I've been out of practice. But I did learn quite a bit of German when I was there. Got to study opera, which I hadn't really officially studied. I had, I'd done choir, but that's not opera. So I got to have a voice teacher that was private there that we did opera and musical theater coaching. And I had a great time. So that was really exciting to study opera and musical theater in Germany. So I went home then June. I'm sorry. What's the third year? Junior year. I was saying it right. I think.
Yes,
my brain left the station for a second. Junior year, I also studied abroad in Spain. That was for a full semester. So I got to study abroad in Madrid, Spain for 4 months. And that was studying international politics. And learning about the EU and all of the great politics that happens in Europe and how it differs from our politics here in the States.
So when you went home that freshman year and you auditioned for The Wizard of Oz, was there something different within you, your persona, going back after having lived in New York for quite some time at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was more independent, and I was still living. I had stayed at home when I was home for those 3 months, and my car luckily was still there. My brother was using my car at the time, so I still had a way to kind of get around, and I could be independent. And I had bills to pay, so I was paying my bills from my phone or whatever it was that I was paying. My family was paying for most of my bills still, luckily. But my mom had passed over a couple bills over to me slowly so that I could learn how to pay bills, on a monthly basis. So I felt definitely more adult and more independent. But then there also was that part of me where now that I'm home and I'm back with my siblings, and there was a sibling that was born during my freshman year of college, my youngest sister.
Wow.
So when I was home for my first year between freshman and sophomore year, I really got to meet her, and I had met her during winter break, but I really got to spend time with her, and she was a little bit older, so she could babble and talk a little bit. And so I kind of went back to my roots a little bit when I went home. I kind of reverted. I was like, oh, now I'm back home with my family and my siblings, and I get to chat with them and learn about how their lives are going, and kind of like leave New York for a little bit. As a lot of us who live in New York know, like, you have to kind of get out of New York City every couple of months.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
if you stay in New York for like 3 or 4 months and don't leave at all, like don't even visit another borough, or if you stay in Manhattan, which is where I was and have been, you have to get out. So I would actually welcomed the chance to like go home, relax a little bit, get out of the New York City mindset where you're just going, and then sit back a little bit in the Florida mindset of just relaxing. So.
And during the 4 years that you're at NYU and you have these other opportunities as well, did you ever waver at all from this profession? Or was this?
No. I mean, I had my double major, and that wasn't because, I was like, oh, I don't know if theater's for me, or I don't know if I'm going to make it in the world. But I've always just been someone who
Mhm.
wanted to get as much education as possible, just to learn as much as I can about the world. And I've always had a passion for politics and student government when I was in high school and such. And so I did have that double major. There were times where I was tired of doing a double major. There were times where
I can
my
imagine.
friends were in the musical theater program and were taking, math, algebra 1 or whatever it is, that, the easy liberal arts classes that you take when you're in a conservatory program. And I was taking these long project based, politics classes and research classes and statistics classes. And so there were definitely times where I was like, I'm a little over having to, do our studio from 9 to 5 and do ballet and all these classes really early in the morning, and then go to my politics classes, and then jump into rehearsal at night from 6 to 11, and then do my homework for my politics double major. But there was never a moment where I was like, I don't know if this is for me anymore. I think it just grew and grew more and more on me in college. Every year I was reaffirmed. I was like, yes, this is for me. Yes, this is what I want to do. Yes, this is so much fun, and I want to make my money and like live and thrive doing this work in New York City.
So after you graduate from college, what were the next steps for you?
It's a good question. I actually first went into a political position after I graduated college. That wasn't my plan. My plan was to kind of maybe do a summer stock or do something that was in New York City, so I could stay local and start doing
Mhm.
auditioning and getting into my performance life. But I got a really cool opportunity to work on the Hillary Clinton presidential campaign in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So that was in 2016 when I graduated college. So I worked for Hillary Clinton in Pittsburgh. Worked really hard as a field organizer. Really just what the job of a field organizer is to get the volunteers that are on the ground, and then bring them to events and make them do all the phone calls and the text banking and the phone banking and all that crazy fun stuff, and scheduling events. And so that was my first job, and I did that
How did that
for.
job come about for you?
I actually don't remember. I believe I probably saw it on some student like job form that NYU had, or like an online posting. Um, I wasn't referred to it. So I think I had just found it, and I applied because I was like, this is something that I could do post college if I wanted to. And the cool thing about politics and musical theater, the reason that they blend so well together is because, well, one, they're both dramatic, so I can do them both pretty easily. But also because they're both contractual. So, you do a show for 6 months, and then you go work on a campaign for 6 months, and the campaign ends, and you can get back to doing shows for 6 more months. So
Mhm.
I've been able to really bouncing back and forth between the two careers, and kind of making my living doing both politics and musical theater. So yeah, that
I
job
wanna
with
ask
Hillary
you, how did
Clinton.
that job shape you, as far as, you being an entertainer, and also the work we're gonna get to in a few moments, in the Rainbow, and when
Yeah.
the amazing work you've done with this. But working on that campaign,
Hmm.
how did that shape you as an artist and
Yes.
as a human being?
That's a great question. what I remember in college, that my professors would always say that the older you get and the more life experience you have, the better actor you become, because you just have more to live with and more to play off of as an actor. And I didn't realize how true that was until I left college and started working and I got into this real world. And then suddenly I had to buy a car for myself to go, work in Pennsylvania because I couldn't take the subway. So I had to buy myself my first car, or my first car. I had a car when I was in high
Did you
school, but
stay
it was
there, or were you commuting back and forth?
no, I stayed there. So I lived in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, for 4 months to work on the campaign. Um, so I moved, which was my first like adult move, like a big move. I moved all my stuff down to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was my first real job, and like I had to pay bills and had to get taxes taken out of my paychecks and all of that other fun stuff that we deal with as adults. And like it gave me my first perspective on like what being a working adult is like. And that then informs my acting and informs my ability to create a character, because now I have this new experience in the real world separate from theater, which gives me a whole different life that I can build on stage. So that definitely affected my acting and my performing ability in a way that I didn't anticipate. I didn't think that, moving to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania would have aided my musical theater career, but it definitely did. It made me into a different actor, a better actor.
Now, while you were away, did you have were you feeling a pull away from New York? Were you missing?
I definitely was. Yeah, I definitely was missing New York. There were plenty of and campaigns are long hours. You're working 8 to 10 to sometimes 12-hour days when you're just like grinding from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to just get this person elected. And because, as we all know, 2016, it was Hillary against Trump at the time. So I was working very hard as I could, in my little district in Pittsburgh to get us to win that little district in Pittsburgh, which we did win that little district, but it didn't help with the overall election, of course.
Unfortunately.
So yeah, I definitely miss New York. And there were days where I was like, why am I working 10, 11, 12 hours a day when I could be in New York City singing and dancing and acting and going to auditions and being with my friends that I had made over 4 years in college. But then I kept reminding myself, I was like, you also have a degree in politics. You did that for a reason. You care about the world and you care about this country and about the laws of the land, and the fact that not everyone has access to those, and the fact that the president, the person that she was running against, could in fact destroy democracy. And so I was like, this is really important. So focus in. You only have to do it till November 4th or 6th, whatever the day of the election was that year. And then you can go back to New York and do your thing. But there were definitely times where I was like, why am I doing this? New York City, I have so access to so many more resources and people and friends and my love of performing and singing. But I kind of just had to had to compartmentalize it and keep it on the side, knowing I would get back to it in November.
Now, when you came back in November, did you know the ropes? Did you know what you needed to do to be a working professional in New York? And I use that term because even if you're not in a show with an equity card, if you're auditioning, if you're up there trying to make it in this business, you're, in my opinion, a working professional.
Yes, and I appreciate that. That's so true.
But did you know the ropes? Did you know what to do, where to go, and how to go about getting seen for the jobs?
Yeah, I did. I mean, the privilege of going to school in New York City is that you are literally studying. You are in and of New York City when you're studying. So my senior year at NYU, we had a course called, I believe it was acting as a business, or the business of acting, something like that. And
Do you know who taught that course?
yes, I do. He wrote a book, Brian O'Neill.
Okay.
Yes, so he has a book, I believe, that's also called Acting as a Business, or the Business of Acting. It's one of those two. And so he taught our course. He also teaches the same course at Juilliard. So he teaches the same course at NYU and Juilliard. And so he taught us a class that was about how to get an agent, or how to get the meeting, how to then interact in the meeting. How do you answer the questions? How do you create a list of your dream jobs, and then translate that into when when your prospective agent asks you, where do you see yourself, and then you have the answers for that kind of question. So I had the education to know what to do in New York City, but the experience is different. Having the practical experience versus the education. It's good to have the education because some people come without the education or the experience. I had a slight leg up because I had the experience, the education, and I was able to audition for a few things when I was in college at my final 2 years in college. So I did have a couple of professional auditions. I actually performed in an off-Broadway opera during my junior year of college. So I had the opportunity to do that. So I did a couple of auditions, and I had been in a professional show in New York before I graduated. So I kind of knew what I was doing. I got myself a little serving gig when I got back to New York City, and then just did the thing and went to auditions until I booked something.
What was your first professional job?
That's a good one. That was the cruise. So I performed as a singer on a cruise ship. So that in the cast. So that was on Norwegian's Oceania Riviera. So the Oceania cruise line is the luxury liner of Norwegian Cruise Line. So we did 4 shows, and they were all like oldies but goodies kind of songs because the clientele was skewed a little older since it was a luxury liner and it was a little more expensive. So there were no families, there weren't really any young people. It was kind of all like CEO, C-suite level, and then older folks. But I had a great time. We kind of were like the face of the ship. In addition to being performers, we also had to interact with the guests, and we had a drink card where we can buy drinks for guests and buy drinks for ourselves and like feel sophisticated and go have dinner with a guest and take them out on a walk around the ship. And like we were really the hosts and the hostess of the ship in addition to actually performing in the shows. And that was such a cool life experience, one because of I met so many cool people and people who added me to their families and like added me on Facebook, and like people who I still can keep up with who were guests on the ship. And then also my friends that I made on the ship. People always ask me, what is it like performing on a ship? And I say it really depends on the people you are working with. So the cast that you're with will really make it or break it because you're stuck with them on a cruise ship for 6 to 10 months, depending on how long your contract is. And if you don't like the people you're working with, then you're going to have a terrible 10 months that you're stuck on the ship. Right. But luckily, I loved all of my castmates and we had an amazing time. And secondly, we were in the Mediterranean Sea. So I was seeing 15 to 20 different countries all over Europe in the Mediterranean Sea. And I could not have asked for a better cruise ship experience because of the travel and then also the people that I was there with.
Now, you also have created your own show. You are a cabaret artist as well.
Yes.
How long were you in the profession before you started creating your own work?
That's a great question because I did it on the cruise ship. So I had heard when I was on the cruise ship that being a guest entertainer is a thing as opposed to being in the cast. I heard that the guest entertainers make more money, they get better perks, you get to bring a guest on if you want sometimes. So I was like, that sounds like a good gig. And to do that, you have to have your own solo show and then submit it to different casting directors or whatever who work in cruise ship entertainment. And so I formulated my first solo show on the cruise ship and then performed it on the ship because my cruise director was so nice and he knew that I had kind of this dream of maybe doing guest entertainer work. And so I did my first show and it was called Motown Music of My Soul, and it was all Motown hits. And then I kind of told the story of my life and how I came into music through Motown music. And so that was my first experience creating my own cabaret, and it went great. And it was so fun.
Now, when was the first time that you did your own cabaret act in New York?
That actually wasn't until this past year. My first cabaret in New York City was not until the fundraiser that I did for Knit the Rainbow last year, my first solo cabaret. And that one was called Austin Rivers Chase the Rainbow. And that one I kind of told the story of Knit the Rainbow, and I each color in the rainbow actually has a meaning assigned to it. Gilbert Baker, who designed the pride flag, gave each color a specific meaning. So basically I used each color to kind of tell a story in each section of the cabaret through music and then also through story. So that was my first solo cabaret experience. I had done cabarets as a backup singer or as doing a 1 or 2 number here in somebody else's cabaret, but that was my first solo one, was in November of 2021.
Well, that brings us up to where we are now with COVID and everything. What did your calendar look like on March 12th of 2021, wasn't it? When
Yeah.
everything shut down?
Yes. 2020, actually. I mean, it's 2 years
yeah.
ago now, which is
Yeah,
crazy to
2020.
think about. I was living at an apartment in Washington Heights, which is where I met my boyfriend, the apartment that I started in the Rainbow in. And I was already booked to do a show in Japan in August. It was when the rehearsals would have started, I believe. So the year 2 years before, going 2018 into 2019, I worked on a show called Disney on Classic in Japan, which is a 60-piece Japanese orchestra and 8 American singers touring Japan and singing Disney music, which is like, I'm from Kissimmee, Florida. Literally, what else would I want to do than sing Disney music with a suit and a tie on in front of thousands of Japanese people every night? It was absolutely I think that was my favorite contract I've ever done, actually. And I was supposed to go back. They wanted me to come back because they were doing Lion King as the show. And so I was going to go, and I believe they had cast me as Simba to sing all the Simba songs. And so I was ready to do that, but it was still a couple months away. So I was kind of just working. I had started my own private voice and acting studio, so I was teaching voice lessons in person at Ripley Greer and at Pearl and all the other studios around New York City, and that's how I was making my livelihood. I was just teaching voice lessons and acting lessons, and I had enough students that I was actually paying my rent based off of this little business that I started, which was really cool to start my own business and to actually make money off of it and survive. And then the pandemic hit, and that contract never happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the pivotal moment for you when Knit the Rainbow was born?
Mm-hmm. So I got my master's degree in public administration when I was it went from 2018 to 2020. So I finished it during the pandemic. It was already online, so luckily it wasn't affected too much by the pandemic itself. And when I went home between December and January for Christmas, I went home December 2019, coming into the year of the pandemic, into 2020. I went home and I was like, I have to do something with this master's degree that I'm about to finish. And I didn't know what. I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I was starting this business, but I also wanted to do something with this master's degree. And so over the next couple of months, and when the pandemic started, and I was getting closer to finishing my master's degree, I was doing some statistics some research, and because I was trying to figure out what community I wanted to help. I knew that from my studies that when you're starting a nonprofit, you want to find a hole in the market, in the proverbial public market. And so I did some research, and I discovered this staggering statistics about the houseless LGBTQ plus youth community in New York City and in the United States. So I learned some crazy numbers that, as a gay man living in New York, that I didn't know. I kind of felt ashamed that I was like, oh, I can't believe I didn't know that this big community of houseless LGBTQ plus youth live in New York City. And I had no idea, and because there's no education about that kind of stuff. And so I was like, okay, wow, this is a community that I have to do something to help, because a majority of them are Black and brown folks. And I was like, that's me, a Black and brown LGBTQ plus person living in New York City. They just didn't have the privilege like I did to have love and support from my family throughout the time. So those are the people I was like, these people, I have to do something to help. And I was like, what can I do? I don't have enough money to build a shelter. I don't have enough connections or resources to build a shelter and to do all of this stuff. But what I could do was knit. So I'll take it back a little bit. I learned how to knit when I was in Japan on that first Japanese tour that I did. One of my castmates, she knew how to knit, and I was just bored sitting on these bullet trains that we're taking, which take anywhere between like 45 minutes to 4 hours to get from city to city in Japan. And I was like, I don't want to just sit around on my phone all day when I'm sitting on these trains. Let me do something else. And so I saw her knitting, and I was like, teach me how to do that. So she taught me how to knit, and then I used YouTube University how to finish my studies in knitting. So that's how I learned. Sorry, I just had to backtrack a little bit to tell the rest of that story. And I was like, so I can knit. And now we're back in 2020. I can knit. There's this community of homeless individuals who live in New York City, which is very cold during the winter, as we're experiencing right now.
God.
And yeah, during this past week, it's suddenly gotten so very cold over these past 2 weeks.
We're expecting 0 degrees in the morning, everyone.
Are we really? I didn't even know that. So I will be staying inside, and I have the privilege to do so. But there are a lot of folks who live in New York City, LGBTQ plus and or not, who don't have that privilege of having a house and warmth and heat during the winter. And so what I could do was knit. And what I decided to do was start crafting as many things as I could to distribute to the youth in New York City that identify as LGBTQ plus.
Well, God bless you. I want to bring up a photograph here.
Sure.
Because this is my dear friend, Kathleen.
Yes.
You.
Wearing the same jacket.
Well, she loves you.
Oh,
And she said, you got to have him on the show. And I'm so glad you're here. I want to let everyone know once again that, and you could show them the pin so that they can see.
the pin is on this side.
There it is.
Ooh, there we go.
And we're going to give one away.
Yes, we
tonight.
are.
And all you need to do is, this is really neat. I'm going to show how this works. So I'm going to bring this up. And so I don't pick the winner. This is going to be done randomly. So in order to be eligible, you have to use the hashtag #KnitTheRainbow and make sure it's spelled out right, because once you do that, you will automatically be entered in the contest.
Oh, great.
And then you'll see how this works in a few moments. So everyone, please enter. We're not going to do the drawing until we get a few people to do this.
Great.
Once you came up with this brainchild, and you also, thank God, got your boyfriend involved as well.
Yes, I did.
What were the first steps to step outside of your comfort zone to get the word out about this?
Yeah, so I the first thing I had to do was create an actual nonprofit, because I could have continued to do the work and just do it as myself, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to grow it and for it to become a bigger thing than just me and my peers, who knew how to knit. So I went through the process of making an actual nonprofit, a 501c3, which is difficult because we have to go through the bureaucracy of the government to do that. So you have to pay a bunch of dollars to do the forms and all that stuff, and I had to find board members, and that was the first challenge because I didn't want to just find board members who were my friends. I wanted to make board members who really cared about the mission, who could do something to help with the mission that we were doing, and then create the board from there. You have to have 3 people to create a board. I knew that I would be the board chair as the person who founded the organization, so I had to find 2 people who cared about the mission. And I did. I didn't just call up my 2 best friends and say, hey, you join this board so I can get this nonprofit started real quick and we can start taking in donations. I really searched for about a month and did Zoom calls with people that were referred to me from different areas of life and different friends, to find the other 2 board members to start Knit the Rainbow with me officially. So that was the first step. I did that. We made our board charter and all that fun stuff you have to do when you're starting a nonprofit. And then the website was the biggest hurdle to start the launch, because we couldn't launch without a social media handle and a website. You can't really do anything without those things nowadays. So I built the website on my own. I used, a website builder, and then just built our website. And the website you see today, it's very similar to the website I originally built. And I'm not a website builder, but we've gotten a lot of compliments that the website is super colorful and easy to use. And I'm very glad that I took the time to sit down and make the website, step out of my comfort zone, because I'm not anywhere near a graphic designer. My boyfriend is, but I'm certainly not. That was the biggest hurdle at first, was
Who
getting a
designed
website.
the pen? Was this your?
That was my boyfriend. Yeah, so he's our graphic designer and social media manager. So all of our social media stuff, anything that we have that's clothing. So I'm wearing one of Knit the Rainbow's t-shirts, and all of that. He designs all of that for us.
Send him my way. I want to talk to him.
I definitely will.
So, again, everyone, we've got one person who's already, but I'm hoping that other people will do hashtag Knit the Rainbow, so you can, so we can spread this out a little bit.
Yes.
But while we're waiting for that to happen, I always end our shows with my homage to James Lipton inside the Actors Studio.
Yes.
He always ended his show with a list of questions. So I pulled some random questions just for some fun.
Okay.
So let's just have some fun here. And the first question is, what's the single most beautiful site that you've ever visited?
It's definitely going to be Japan. But where in Japan? That is the hard part. I think this was in Kyoto, Japan. And we went to, I believe the American name is the Golden Palace. I don't know what it is in Japanese. I did at the time when I was there, but and it is this beautiful gold, literally a full palace made of gold in Japan, and it's sitting on the water, and you can see the reflection of the gold in the water. So you get a kind of a double view of the palace, and that was so astonishing to be in Japan and to have the Japanese architecture, and be in Japan with the beautiful landscape that was around, and then this double viewed golden palace.
Wow, amazing. Next question. Who is the person most able to make you laugh?
Mhm. Definitely my boyfriend.
Oh, good.
Yes, definitely. And he's not watching tonight. He would be, but he's actually on tour right now and is in a show at this very moment.
Good.
So
What's he doing?
he's doing Tootsie the musical.
Oh, wow. Good.
Yes.
That was just recently in Baltimore.
Yes, it was.
Yes, a friend of mine went to see it. Loved it.
Yes. Yeah, he's in the ensemble.
Oh, good. In what way are you most humble?
What way am I most humble? That's a hard question because I feel like indicating how humble you are makes you not humble. When you talk about your humility, it feels like, oh, I'm not really humble anymore. But that's a good question. What ways am I most humble? I don't know. My mom is watching. My mom can answer that question better. My mom is Kimberly Brown. She's the one who's commenting.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Mom.
My mom would
I
know the
applaud
answer to
you.
that.
Yes.
But I think it's my singing because I've been singing my whole life, and I do all these shows and these cabarets, and I know I'm a good singer, and I know like I got some vocal chops, but like, and I get compliments all the time, and I'm always like, oh, please stop telling me about my voice. I love it. Thank you so much for the compliments. This is why I perform. I do shows so that you can listen to my voice, but also like let me hide in my corner because I don't know what to say.
Austin, I'm going to give you a piece of advice.
Yes.
Just simply say thank you.
Yes.
That's it.
Right.
Nothing more. Just simply say thank you.
Right.
Next question. We are halfway through January.
Mhm.
Did you make any resolutions? And if so, where do you stand as far as those resolutions are concerned?
I actually purposefully tried not to make a resolution. I was like, I make a resolution every year and then I just never do it. So I was like, if I don't say it's a resolution, maybe I can do it. I'm trying to do a little fitness journey, but I was like, I'm not going to say that's my New Year's resolution because it won't happen if I say that. So I'm currently embarking on. I moved. My boyfriend and I moved recently, and we have a gym in our building now, and so I don't have to pay for Planet Fitness. I have no excuse. It's literally downstairs. And it looks like my mom says something.
He's definitely a humble person, and it doesn't brag about how well he can sing. Thank you, Mom.
Yes, she knows. I knew she would have a good answer, but
Good for her.
yeah. So I'm on a fitness journey, and that's probably that would be, but I'm not saying it is because I won't do it if it is my resolution.
Now, this question is: do you feel that you've ever been taken advantage of in this business?
That's a good question. I've said that a lot. I've said it because you have a lot of good questions. So thanks. I think there maybe has been times I've oftentimes feel like, and this I feel like there are times when I've been cast as an understudy because I'm not the right race to look the part. Which really is interestingly enough, it started back in high school, and we did West Side Story, as I said, and they cast me as Riff. So it was a colorblind casting, whatever that means. But they also made me the understudy for Tony. I was like, why didn't you just make me Tony instead of making me the understudy for Tony and also making me play Riff at the same time? So there have been little moments of like that where I feel like I maybe didn't get the role that I could have gotten because my skin wasn't the color that they were thinking of, but I had the talent, so they made me the understudy. But I wasn't the person they envisioned playing the part every night. So I think there's moments of that where they use my talent to be a backup in case, but didn't use me to be like the front man for the role.
Wow. Well, thank you for your honesty on this.
Oh, thank you.
Do you meditate?
I don't. I've never been a kind of person who it does mindfulness, yoga, meditation. I never gotten into it. Not saying I'm opposed to it, but I just have never really taken the time to get into it.
Not a part of who you are, so
right.
That's okay. Do you? This may be in the same realm of that. I don't know. Do you practice gratitude? And if so, name 3 things that you're grateful for.
I definitely can practice gratitude. The one thing I can always say that I'm grateful for is my family. first thing I will always say is my family. Having such a big family is such a blessing, and it really like makes me the person that I am today. And so family 100%, and having that support from them couldn't be more privileged and blessed to have that. Thankful for my boyfriend. He's such a big help for Knit the Rainbow, and I ask him to do and help out with so much, and he never complains about it and does everything that I ask him to do and more for Knit the Rainbow. He's literally our #1 volunteer because he lives in Knit the Rainbow's office and has to be. So thankful for him. And then I'm also thankful for all of the volunteers who like spend time to sit in their homes and handcraft huge things that take weeks to make, and they send them to us after making something fresh, which is hard to do because you fall in love with the things that you make when it takes that long, So I'm so thankful for the people who support Knit the Rainbow, both financially and with actual physical donations, because we couldn't be where we are today without this beautiful community of people who are helping me grow Knit the Rainbow every day.
That's wonderful. And God bless you. And Kathleen told me this morning she has another shipment coming out to you.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yes, so it's on its way. She works.
I'm actually also wearing one of Kathleen's things.
I am too.
Yes, I saw that in your intro, which
Yes.
is so funny
Yes.
because she gave one to me when she saw me perform, and I wore it for my concert.
Maybe you've already answered this next question, and maybe we're seeing this with the work that you're currently doing. But what do you think that your purpose in life is?
I think spreading love as much as I can. I think that's really what Knit the Rainbow is about. Even though we're giving warm garments, I think that really at the core of it is that I'm trying to show these youth that they're loved by someone, whether it's me or the person who literally took the time to hand make them this beautiful garment. That's the great thing about why we only take handcrafted garments, because that's part of the mission, is that we want to not only give them warmth, but also show them that someone took the time to make this for you. And that's why I started the Rainbow. That's why I perform, because I love spreading joy and love around to the people who are in the audience. Yeah, definitely spreading love.
Send your mom that Knit the Rainbow pin. Because
I will. She doesn't have one, so I definitely will.
Okay, so she gets it.
Oh, great.
And I'm going to ask one last question. When, beyond this work, which is so honorable, and congratulations and thank you for what you're doing. When do you feel that you've been the most honorable in your career?
I think honorable, that's such an interesting word to think about. I don't usually associate honor with performing, but it totally is honorable. I think performing in Japan was a moment where I felt honorable as a performer, because the Japanese people that are listening to these shows, they are so open to the performers on stage. I have never experienced an audience in the States where the people in the audience are so open and their eyes are just glued to the stage, and there wasn't a cell phone in the audience, there wasn't a sneeze. Everyone is so tuned into what's happening, and they love the stuff that's happening on stage. And so I felt that amazing love and support from the audience like I've never felt before. And there were people who will come up to the show after us sobbing about how changed they were by these 8 American singers coming and singing them some Disney music. And Disney music can be powerful, and especially when it's with a live orchestra. And so that is when I was like, wow, this craft is really doing something for someone. And there's a language barrier. They don't even understand the words that we're singing, but the fact that the music is moving them so much, and I'm a part of that big thing that's moving them to tears when they don't even really understand the words, was so beautiful. And I can say that was honorable. That's a good word for it. I had never thought of that.
That's great. Well, don't go anywhere for a moment. I want to thank everyone who showed up tonight. I know that I can speak for Austin when I say this. We don't take it lightly when you show up. So thank you for showing up tonight. Please, if you can contribute in any way whatsoever to Knit the Rainbow, it's knittherainbow.com.
.org.
Please, please, please get involved in any way whatsoever. Spread the word. Let people know about it. There it is.
Those are all of our garments.
All the garments. Get involved. If this is your first time at Richard Skipper Celebrates, I hope it won't be your last time. On my banner, there's a little button that says Join in the Celebration. If you click on that button, it will remind you anytime I'm going live with any of the artists that I celebrate. because I'm all about celebrating artists and their body of worth, as we've done tonight. Check them out. If you see that they're performing anywhere, show up. Tell them that you first saw them on this platform. But get out there and try, especially the Omicron variant is going down in New York, but still wear your mask, get vaccinated, get boosted, and go and see a live show.
Yes, please do.
I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. What I would like all of you who are watching this show to do tonight is to go to this website. It's called whatyoumeantome.com, but it's the number 2. What you mean. Will you do this too, Austin?
Yeah, of course. I would
So
love to.
whatyoumeantome.com. And then I want you to go to your Facebook friends list. And the second name that pops up, I want you to reach out. And I want you to go back to that website, and I want you to fill out that form, letting that person know what they mean in your life. Because we're all in this together. But as my dear friend David Friedman says, we're in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And I always say, if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper along. Now, Austin, I'm going to leave the screen, and I'm going to give you the final word. Anything that you want to say about anything that we talked about tonight that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message you want to put out to anyone who's watching right now, don't worry about how to end this show, because when you say goodbye, the closing credits will begin. Thank you. And please stay in touch.
I definitely will.
Thank you. It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you for giving me the space to talk about what I do and for appreciating the work that I've done with my life and with Knit the Rainbow. I always take every opportunity to talk about Knit the Rainbow, no matter how small the audience, how big the audience. And I really appreciate every opportunity that I'm given to talk and spread the word about our mission. So thank you for being here. Thank you for everyone who's watching and for taking the time out of your night on a Thursday night or Thursday afternoon, if you're on the West Coast, to listen to us talk about me. And I really appreciate you taking the time to celebrate with us. Thanks, and let's celebrate Richard Skipper for giving artists a platform to talk about the work they're doing, to celebrate us. Thank you so much, Richard. Thanks, Mom, for being here and watching and supporting always, every step of the way. Your enamel pin will be on the way soon. And don't forget to send love, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.